Pelosi makes it clear Trump will be impeached. Melania crushes a left-wing clown. Is Bernie Sanders a communist? And why are liberals getting upset at Mayor Pete? We got that, plus an anti-robocall bill that'll make Buck very happy if it passes, coming up.
Sadly, but with confidence and humility, with allegiance to our founders and a heart full of love for America. Today, I am asking our chairman to proceed with articles of impeachment. I commend our committee chairs and our members for their somber approach to actions which the president had not made necessary. In signing the Declaration of Independence, our founders invoked a firm reliance on divine providence. Democrats, too, are prayerful, and we will proceed in a manner worthy of our oath of office to support and defend the Constitution of the United States from all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God.
Welcome to the Buck Sexton Show. They're impeaching Trump, just like I said they would, just like I've been saying they would for over a year now, really. No surprise. The best part of this, though, this was Nancy Pelosi's announcement this morning, was just the way that the Democrats try to set all this stuff up with a heart full of love for America, divine providence, a somber approach, prayerful about this terrible thing we have to do to President Trump that we really don't want to do. I mean, we've been talking about it since the day he won the election, but we really don't want to do it. Oh, no. Oh, what are we going to do? My friends, this is an important reminder. This is what we're up against. The left pretends that they care about the process. They pretend that they want to protect institutions, and they tear institutions down. They burn the village down in order to save it, so to speak. And this is a perfect example of it. I mean, that hearing yesterday went on for hours and hours and hours and hours. Some of it I was able to talk to you about on the show, but it was still going till almost 6:30 Eastern, I think, last night. I mean, that hearing. And I will give credit to a fellow on Brett Baer's panel last night who said what was obvious but needed to be said. The whole hearing meant nothing. It was an absurdity. It was a waste of everybody's time, except for perhaps the academics who used it as an opportunity to audition for MSNBC and CNN contributor jobs. And that I think they were successful in doing. That I think is quite clear. Let's just get into a bit of it, because there's obviously the political implications here. And by the way, we're not going to spend the entire show today talking about impeachment. I know there are other things. So for those of you who are already tired of it, and look, I get tired of it because it's so obvious what Nancy Pelosi and Schiff and the rest of the Democrats are up to here, and Nadler. It's so clear, the game that they're playing. And the brazenness of the dishonesty from them. It's tough to take day in and day out. Nancy Pelosi, we're prayerful. We don't want to do the... come on. Who is so stupid that they believe Nancy Pelosi when she says that? And so if no one believes her, why say it? I mean, it's just all a show. I mean, these people really are crazy. And they've turned into a pack of loons. You can't reason with them. There was a fantastic piece by my friend David Harsanyi, who is great when he calls in. He's a fantastic writer, really good guy. He calls in, he's always like, I don't know, politics is a crazy thing. He's got a little bit of a laid back, he's almost like the surfer dude of Denver, although now he lives in D.C. He's very chill about these things. He just wrote a piece touching on what I was saying yesterday, I mean, not what I said, but the same subject matter, that these professors clowned themselves. I mean, you had some of them saying things that are just outrageous. I mean, they're just dumb. It's not something that you could hold as an opinion and be considered an intelligent person or an honest person anyway. I mean, they were trying to say that this president thinks that he's a monarch. even. This was Professor Gerhardt. Play 9.
What matters in determining whether particular misconduct constitutes a high crime and misdemeanor is ultimately the context and the gravity of the misconduct in question. After reviewing the evidence that's been made public, I cannot help but conclude that this president has attacked each of the Constitution's safeguards against establishing a monarchy in this country. Both the context and gravity of the president's misconduct are clear.
A monarchy, he says. This president, at best, is going to have 4 more years in office. This president has been willing to abide by universal injunctions set by left-wing activist judges on the federal bench who, in bad faith, shut down executive power well beyond what should be their purview and their reach just because they're hashtag resistance. This president's a monarch? Please. Monarchs do whatever they want. This president has to deal with insane liberals who refuse to let him actually be president because they refuse to accept that he won the presidency. This is where all this comes from, that simple fact. Liberals are still in a state of denial. The left, the Dems, the socialists. Let's start using that word more, by the way. It should be used more in the context of talking about our political opponents here. They are socialists. They are collectivists. They are statists. They are all of these things. They can call themselves Democrats as their official party name, but they're a socialist party. And why should we have to pretend that they're not? But there are socialists who believe in different layers and levels of capitalism within their economy, but they want overall control of it all, and they want to be able to redistribute wealth, and they want to use taxation not just for social engineering, but also for addressing the imbalances of a society, making it more equitable, essentially appealing to envy, which, while bad for economies, is good politics. There are a lot of envious people. Unfortunately, there's no shortage of those who are bitter that things have not worked out the way that they wanted them to. And those people can vote. They tend to vote Democrat. So here we are now faced with the reality that we've all known was coming. Nancy Pelosi saying that they're going to put forward articles of impeachment. They're going to impeach this president. No, this is what when I had even my friends Raheem and Sean Davis on earlier this week. I said, guys, I mean, I'm still 95%. I'm really 100% certain. I mean, you got to say you're maybe 99% certain because we could be invaded by space aliens tomorrow. No one really knows the future. But this was effectively a certainty. Because if the Democrats had backed off this and pushed for a censure vote, that would have been an admission that they didn't have the goods. And if they didn't have the goods, why would they put us through this process? Why the rush? Why the disrespect of the Constitution while claiming to be upholding and defending the Constitution? We should all find this to be simply disgusting, but it is what we have to deal with. Oh, Noah Feldman, who looked like he was auditioning for the role of a professor from the Harry Potter movies, he was up there as well talking about monarchy and dictatorship yesterday. I mean, these people are absurd. They're hysterics. Play 13, please.
The abuse of power occurs when the president uses his office for personal advantage or gain. That matters fundamentally to the American people because if we cannot impeach a president who abuses his office for personal advantage, we no longer live in a democracy. We live in a monarchy or we live under a dictatorship. That's why the framers created the possibility of impeachment.
Okay, so this person is a moron. He's a tenured professor of law at Harvard. He's a moron. I don't care. I don't care what he's done within this system and how he's tried to impress people within that system to get to this perch. He does not have basic critical thinking ability that is necessary for good judgment in a realm as complicated as the law. He's really just a partisan who, talks the talk and walks the walk, and so he's been able to accelerate himself. Saying, look at Lawrence Tribe, another professor. Lawrence Tribe is a lunatic. Look at his Twitter account. This guy's trying to teach future generations of lawyers. Law schools now are churning out little activist libs who don't really understand the foundational precepts of law in this country or even law in general. Why does law exist? What is the law? They don't know Socrates. They know social justice warrior. This is a big problem. He says that if you can't impeach somebody, you're in a monarchy or a dictatorship. And then I also love how Schiff pointed out, and no, by the way, no one is claiming that you cannot impeach Trump. No one says that you cannot do this. It's just ridiculous to do it. It's absurd. It's an abuse of power. And one of my favorite moments in the entire hearing yesterday was when Professor Jonathan Turley, who's the only one, not a Trump voter, by the way, wanted to bring the Bush administration up on war crimes. I mean, he's a left-of-center guy, but he's not totally nuts. He's smart and not totally Trump deranged. He said, you're going to make something now. This is the claim that Democrats have, that because Trump, as the executive branch head, is saying, all right, you want to take my executive branch people, we're co-equal branches of government, we'll see you in court. We'll see you in court now, which has been the standard until very recently that everybody accepted, is now itself an impeachable offense. The attempt to push back against the left's tyranny is used by the tyrants as evidence that their tyranny is justified. That is what we are up against. Professor Turley just said, you're abusing, to Congress, you're abusing your power. You can't say he doesn't have recourse to the courts. You do what I say or else, the Congress says. No, then the courts adjudicate between two co-equal branches of government, which way this will go. They accept this on all kinds of other levels. They didn't speak about tyranny. And this is the part that really just was goading me yesterday. Because it is an indefensibly stupid thing for someone to say that this president has committed the worst crimes, the most impeachable conduct of any president ever, which is the claim that Schiff has made, which is what these professors yesterday were making a case for, that this president is a threat to our democracy. Who else would they say that about? And this is where I go back to my friend David Harsanyi, who was writing about this in National Review. But you could just think off the top of your head. Did they say that Woodrow Wilson was a threat to democracy when he was locking people up for opposing U.S. intervention in the First World War? When FDR took Japanese Americans and locked them in internment camps? When Lincoln suspended habeas corpus because he said so? Were any of these people a threat to democracy in their actions? Impeachable, perhaps. Oh, of course not. I mean, Wilson was a racist in the way, but he was a Democrat, of course, so they don't like to talk about this. Wilson was a racist in the way that liberals today love to pretend most people on the right are, meaning that Wilson was an actual racist. Woodrow Wilson, real deal racist. And yet, the most impeachable conduct of all time. More so than even Nixon, of course. More so than presidents who the left, the socialist left in this country, effectively accepted tyrannical, monarchical moves from them. FDR, Woodrow Wilson, go back in time, you will find plenty. Look, John Adams, suspended habeas corpus. John Adams, go back to the Alien and Sedition Act. I believe it was of 1798. Lock people up for saying things they didn't like. You don't think that's a bit of a breach of the First Amendment to the Constitution? Friends, there have been so much more egregious abuses of power, egregious abuses of authority. And here's the real problem. Trump didn't abuse his power. All the things they're saying are lies. It's not true. There's nothing wrong with what he did. He broke no law. He broke no statute. He broke no ethical boundary in Ukraine or Russia conduct. None. So this is how upside down their thinking is. This is how absurd and deranged the left has become in the era of Trump, because he has broken them. They now will make the claim that someone who has not done anything that is impeachable is the most impeachable president of all time. This is disconnect from reality. This is derangement. This is people seeing pink elephants flying in the sky and thinking that they are geniuses for calling it out. It's both hilarious and scary, I have to tell you.
Well, I did. I saw it, and it's a joke. Everybody is saying it. I will tell you, it is a uniform statement. I think pretty much right down the road that what they're doing is a very bad thing for our country. It's of no merit, and the Republican Party has never been more unified ever. They've never been as unified as they are right now.
I'm happy to say I think the president's analysis here is spot on across the board. Any fair-minded person watching this thinks that it's preposterous. It's just ridiculous, the whole thing. Democrats are just lying. They're gaming and scheming and then lying about it and then lying about their intentions and lying about, the fact that they don't really want to be doing this and they haven't made up their minds yet. How is it that we all knew they were going to impeach the president? We've known this for months. We've really known this for years. How could we know if it was evidentiary, if the final conclusion was going to be rooted in some understanding of what the actual information is that is presented? Oh, that's right. They didn't allow for the collection of facts through a special counsel. They didn't have a Ken Starr investigation. They didn't have anything leading up to the would-be impeachment of Richard Nixon that involved independent investigators pulling together facts. No, they're just running with whatever they can do. It's all a scam, a scheme, a hoax, a fraud. And these people that are perpetrating this against America are the ones who are always complaining about Trump. Oh, has problems with the truth. Oh, he's an exaggerator. He's a BS artist. Like Buck Sexton, my initials. He's one of those. It turns out that they have quite a problem with the truth on areas that really matter. But I am happy to say that the Republican Party is now, I think, unified. This is turning into something of a Kavanaugh moment. We are seeing the other side act with no good faith, no respect for any process or principle, more importantly. There's only one principle under which the Democrats are operating right now. Stop Trump at all costs. The Constitution, the country, be damned. Oh, as if the leftist professors were not beclowning themselves enough yesterday during this marathon series of hearings. What was the hearing about? No fact witnesses. Just people showing up who have already said things, very stupid things, by the way. Incredibly dumb things, like the president could be impeached for a tweet. One of these guys, the one who looked like the Harry Potter professor, Feldman, he actually had already written that. And that guy Gerhardt, professor from, I think, UNC, he's the one who says the president's going to be, this is going to turn into a monarchy. And these people say idiotic things all the time. But Professor Carlin, who's at Stanford Law School, had some very worthwhile moments. But this was the best because it really showed you who she is. It showed you what the left is really like. I mean, this woman was just combative, grandstanding, just the most typical, really, left-wing pseudo-intellectual you could find anywhere. Not thoughtful, not nuanced, not wise, not steeped in the knowledge of her supposed craft and expertise. A partisan, an activist dressing it up with a few fancy words here and there. This is really actually typical for leftism these days. I can't tell you how many leftist intellectuals I meet or even discuss or debate with who just aren't impressive, who aren't smart. They have been trained in a very specific way to a specific ends within their fields. But they might as well be the people standing outside of an Ann Coulter speech with signs saying, white nationalists not allowed, and screaming epithets and curses at her. Because they have the same mindset. This is why when I tell you that Harvard law professors now share the politics of assistant gender studies professors at Oberlin or Brown or Reed College or one of these like left-wing loon factories. It's true. They share all the same ideas. It has the consolidation of thought in the universities is mind-blowing. It was bad when I was there years ago. I had the only conservative tenured professor on my entire college campus as my advisor. There was only one. How is that possible? Well, it's possible because the libs are totalitarians, and so they control access, and they crush people that don't agree with them, and then they create a little monoculture. They create the echo chamber of the faculty lounge, and the faculty lounge creates an echo chamber of the greater campus, and the greater campus then includes the law school portion of the campus, and then that means that you have lawyers running around the country who think that the law is whatever they want it to say because whatever makes them feel good and gets a monologue of praise from Chris Hayes or Rachel Maddow is what really matters. The Constitution be damned, who cares? Oh, you think I'm, you know I'm not exaggerating. I don't exaggerate. I speak the truth. It's why you listen to this show. It's why you watch this show. We have Professor Carlin of Stanford Law School showing us who she is and how she thinks about things. Please, Producer Brandon, clip 5.
Kings could do no wrong because the king's word was law. And contrary to what President Trump has said, Article 2 does not give him the power to do anything he wants. And I'll just give you one example that shows you the difference between him and a king, which is the Constitution says there can be no titles of nobility. So while the president can name his son Baron, he can't make him a baron.
Oh, man. Sick burn. Yo, yeah. Bringing the president's 10-year-old son into this hyper-partisan testimony. Disgusting. Disgusting. And by the way, that was practiced. You could tell by the way she delivered the line. She had thought about that beforehand. She had been waiting to drop this one. Yeah, the social justice warriors. I'm sure they love that over at the HuffPost and, the semi-illiterates at the Young Turks. I'm sure they thought it was great. Melania Trump, though, crushed this smug commie with the following tweet. Quote, that's right, the First Lady getting in on it, because you mess with Mama Bear, you deal with the consequences. A minor child deserves privacy and should be kept out of politics. Pamela Karlan, you should be ashamed of your very angry and obviously biased public pandering and using a child to do it. End quote, courtesy of Melania. Boom. By the way, the most fashionable First Lady of all time, and yet all the fashion magazines they won't dress her, they won't put her on the magazines, because they're appalling leftists. No surprise there. That's right. Professor at Stanford Law, tenured professor, probably making $300,000 or $400,000 a year to brainwash recent college grads into thinking that they really understand the law, and that things like Roe v. Wade. That's a good way to interpret the law. Look at that. That's a thumbs up. Yeah, we'll invent something and this other thing, and there we go. The law says whatever we want. It's a living constitution, you see. The words are alive, and they can move around based on our orders, based on our whim. And yet here we are. Pamela Karlan lecturing the country. All these professors lecturing the country. What exactly do they know? What do they bring to the table? Nothing that was unexpected. She did kind of apologize, which I thought was also worth hearing. Play clip 12.
And if I can just say one thing, I want to apologize for what I said earlier about the president's son. It was wrong of me to do that. I wish the president would apologize, obviously, for the things that he's done that's wrong, but I do regret having said that.
See, I regret her being dumb. I mean, the fact that she brought the president's very young son into this conversation is completely unacceptable. I mean, look, I'm not crying big tears about it. I mean, it wasn't. She brought him into it. It was a petty thing to do, but it wasn't. She didn't call him a little idiot. I mean, there have been leftists who have, and in the press, who have said horrific things about Barron Trump. I mean, horrific things, and they have been allowed to. I mean, if you ever want to understand that the press really isn't that different now. We're just better at seeing who they are. Go back and read some of the stories that the left-wing rags would put out about Sarah Palin and her family and her child. And back in the 2008 election, liberals are appalling. No honor, no dignity, no class. It's become their culture. There are people within that culture who do have good qualities and do have those qualities, but the overwhelming culture of the left now is a totalitarian self-righteousness. They know what's right about everything. They don't want to exchange any ideas with the other side. They want to force you to do things. They want you to repudiate all you believe in. They want you to bend the knee and then apologize that it took so long for you to do so, and then accept that they're probably going to have to destroy you anyway to encourage the others. There was... I said, why was I upset about Professor Carlin? The stupidity of saying the president can't do whatever he wants. How could anyone pay attention to politics in this country for 5 minutes and think that the president is of the impression he can do whatever he wants? How many times has he been blocked by the courts? How many times has he gone to Congress? Was he able to get the health care plan that he wanted? No. Was he able to just do what he wanted on immigration? No. Time and again, the courts, challenging. And he's right, by the way. They're wrong. The people in the court system or the members of Congress or the states that are bringing these challenges, they're being shot down. They misinterpret the law. But how could he think he does whatever he wants? No, in fact, one of my complaints about Trump is that sometimes he doesn't do what he should do, what he does have the power to do, because I think he is too deferential to some aspects of the system that's in place. I think that he does get a little bit too swayed by some elements of the national security apparatus and the forever war lobby in D.C. and across the country. I think that on the issue of immigration and on the wall, there were ways for him to proceed without having to go through all this, series of court challenges. But how could anyone say that the president thinks that he can do anything? The reality here is that the president of the United States, according to Democrats, cannot be on a call with a counterpart head of state engaging in foreign policy and make a passing reference to information about possible corruption in a country known for corruption. He can't even do that without them thinking that he should lose his job. And he thinks he can do anything? By the way, it never happened. Nothing happened. There was no pressure. This is all a conjured fantasy of the left, which is why it's not working. But they have to do this. They have to impeach him. They want to tar him with that. They want to have the asterisk next to him, just like they wanted to do with Kavanaugh. Asterisk. He doesn't really count. Any of his Supreme Court decision doesn't really count. This is a childishness that is the basis of a lot of liberal viciousness. They don't accept that they've lost when they've lost. And so going forward, whenever there should be the next step, whenever people should look at the precedent and what do we do now, it's, oh no, we haven't moved to a further stage in the discussion, whether it's about the Supreme Court or about immigration or about anything. The initial fight must be had again because the initial victory, whether it's Trump's election or it's at the Supreme Court, was illegitimate. Not just that I disagree with it, it was illegitimate. It is not binding on me. What liberals don't really understand, or perhaps they understand and don't care, is that their mentality is it is accelerating in its extremism, and they will eventually bring us to the dissolution of the form of government that we've lived under now for a couple hundred years if they don't stop with this. They can't continue to destroy institutions, to undermine them, while claiming to be the great protectors of them. They can't allow, for example, President Obama to do things as president that he himself had said he does not have the right to do as president, and then to have beyond that, the courts slap down the Obama administration numerous times. Obama lost, I think it was close to a dozen times on major issues. His administration, the courts had to be like, you can't do that. Can't do that. That's a power grab. Oh, but he was Obama. We couldn't criticize him. Couldn't say anything mean about him. People who who attack this straw man that Trump can't do anything he wants to do. Nobody thinks that. And nobody would be okay with that. I wouldn't be okay with the president saying, yeah, Congress, we're going to just say you're not in session and I'm just going to write laws. I wouldn't be okay with that. I could sit here and establish with you, I have red lines even for this president. There are things he could not do. I'm upset that he's spending so much money. $23 trillion in debt, folks. Going to be $30 trillion before you know it. You want to see what the impact of this is? Look at millennial wealth at this stage, and then look at boomer wealth. We have an intergenerational theft occurring in this country on a massive scale, and people don't want to think of it that way. That is what is happening. And it's because the single most important driver of the economy right now is federal government policy in a lot of ways. Whether the market's going up or down, it's the Fed rate. Do they raise interest rates? Hugely important to the trajectory of the economy. Look at all the ways that we have an hyper-regulated economy. I mean, I like to say this sometimes just because I'll go down the rabbit hole, but a conversation for another time. There are problems with this administration, no question about it. Impeachable? Absurd. The president deserves 4 more years. And here's what I will tell you. And I don't want to keep repeating this because I don't want us to get complacent at all. The good news is that the shrill liberal lunatics are losing, and they know it. That's the good news. In terms of Trump and the election, in terms of the culture and the trajectory of government and the growth of socialism, we'll talk about whether Bernie Sanders is a commie in just a little bit. I'm more concerned about that.
This impeachment would rival the Johnson impeachment as the shortest in history, depending on how one counts the relevant days. Now, there are 3 distinctions when you look at these, or 3 commonalities when you look at these past cases. All involved established crimes. This would be the first impeachment in history where there would be considerable debate, and in my view, not compelling evidence of the commission of a crime. Second is the abbreviated period of this investigation, which is problematic and puzzling. This is a facially incomplete and inadequate record in order to impeach a president.
They're abusing the process at every step. They're trying to shoehorn this into a completely politically determined timeline, and they're pretending all along that somehow this is about the Constitution, the core values. What did Nancy Pelosi say? Heart full of love for America. Oh, please. These people are destroying America. And I don't like to come on air and exaggerate about these things. I don't like to be the one that's, the sky is falling and we're all doomed. There are other shows you can listen to. How we're all going to die tomorrow if, you don't buy whatever from my sponsor. I mean, there are other shows that do that. I don't do that. I love and respect this audience too much. Unlike Nancy Pelosi saying she loves the country, I actually love this audience. But they really are. I've said it. They're kicking at the load-bearing walls of America at this point. I mean, they're messing with very combustible stuff. They really think that Trumpism, the Trump movement, would go away if they were successful in removing the president. Here's, I think, the little reality. The D.C. insiders that are pushing this whole thing, the Pelosi's, the Schiffs, the Nadlers, they want to impeach him because they hate him, and their base demands it. There's a part of me that realizes that believes, I should say, that they've felt like the Senate was a kind of fire break all along. The Senate was a stopgap. They knew he wouldn't get removed from office because as much as the people, I'm not talking about the left would love Trump to get removed from office. I'm talking about the Pelosi's, the Nadlers, the Schiffs. They would have to know that if somehow, by some ill-fated turn, there are some Republicans who defected and you had a 2/3 and you removed this president from office, I mean, the backlash in this country, the sense that the system is rigged and broken and that the totalitarian left will do anything and stop at nothing, the Trump movement would be growing tenfold in the years ahead. That's what I just think it would be an unstoppable, because at that point, even I would say, no more. Not playing by their rules, time to establish new rules. And they wouldn't like that.